Hello there from the cockpit of the 2016 Mazda Cx5 Petrol. Last week I brought you a Cx5 diesel, a turbo diesel. That is our support car review, and the feedback was, please review for us the petrol flavor. There are those people who for them diesel is not their cup of tea. So welcome to 0 to 60 Motoring once again. My name is Bill Sioture, and today I'm going to give you an in-depth and detailed review about the 2016 Mazda Cx5 Petrol. So in the past I've reviewed a 2017 Mazda Cx5 2000cc petrol. So if you fancy that shape, of which it's something I really like, you can check that review on the channel. It was actually a 2000cc like this one, but then the price tag of that car is a little bit hefty because it's in the north of 3.5 million shillings. Most people will be looking at this 2016 Mazda Cx5 petrol, for those interested in the petrol flavor, of course. I said that if I'm given a choice between the diesel and the petrol flavors, Monday to Saturday and twice on Sundays, I'm going to place my corner on the diesel. But then there are people who don't want to do modifications, they want a stress-free life. Those people are going to go for the petrol variant, and that's why I'm here. So if you've been looking for a 2016 Mazda Cx5 petrol review, you're on the right platform. So if new also on this channel, make sure you subscribe. That is the only way you can actually help this channel grow. So let me start by throwing off the basics off the line first. I said that the Mazda Cx5 is one of the best selling crossovers for the last 4 years, and I don't think that is going to change anytime soon. The price tag for this 2016 Mazda Cx5 petrol flavor kicks off from around 2.7 million shillings, stretching to 3 million shillings. That is for the 2.5 liter Grand Touring. The diesel is of course cheaper at around 2.6 or even 2.4 million. Now the Mazda Cx5 2016, there are actually 3 engine options to pick from. 2 of them are petrol ones, that is a 2000cc and 225cc petrol. All of them are naturally aspirated, meaning no turbo, no supercharger. Now for the diesel, it's a 2.2 liter turbo diesel. So there are only 3 engine options to pick from, and those engines are the exact replicas you're going to find in something like the Mazda 6 or the Mazda Tenza if you like. In all the Mazda Cx5, you have a choice of picking either between a 6-speed automatic gearbox and a 6-speed manual gearbox. Of course, I like the manual gearbox because I've driven it a couple of times, but majority of the cars in the market are going to be automatic. I don't have a problem with the automatic gearbox here because it's one of the best gearboxes in the class, because majority of the competition are actually coming with the CVT gearbox. The Mazda Cx5 is a pretty simple car to drive. The steering wheel is actually very light, and then the 2000cc engine here paired with the 6-speed automatic gearbox feels like it's doing its job pretty well. But that is because we are only 2 people in the car. When the car is loaded, there is a possibility that you are going to find it a little bit sluggish. That's why I'm not a big fan of 2000cc engines in crossovers, especially when those engines are actually normally aspirated or naturally aspirated, if you like. So when last week I was bringing a video of a 2.2 turbo diesel, so most probably you want to know if there is a big difference between this car and the 2.2 turbo diesel. To be honest, the difference between a 2000cc natural aspirated petrol engine and a 2.2 turbo diesel is like day and night. It's like white and black, crystal clear. The reasoning is pretty simple. In this car, you are looking at around 150 brake horsepower and 200 Newton meters of torque, and in the diesel flavor, you are looking at 180, the north of 180 brake horsepower, and a healthy 420 Newton meters of torque. Of course, not very many people are going to like the diesel, because I said for the diesel, you have to do some modifications here and there. It's not a car that you buy and keep it stock. So who is a buyer who should buy a 2000cc petrol engine? The 2000cc petrol engine is ideal for someone who maybe does short trips, and I know that person who normally loads their cars, because once you load this car, it's going to feel underpowered, sluggish, lackluster, and lazy. All those are adjectives that you can use to describe a slow car. But then it's very simple to maintain and to fuel, because when I'm looking at the difference between this and the 2.5 liter petrol engine, especially in traffic, for this one you are looking at the north of 12.5 kilometers per liter, especially in traffic or highway driving. The average will be around 12.5 kilometers per liter. But for the 2.5 liter, I've played with a 2.5 liter all-wheel drive, and the best figure I was getting in that car was 10.5 kilometers per liter, which is not that bad, especially for someone who wants all-wheel drive. The acceleration of this car is not that bad for day-to-day running, and unless you are a car enthusiast, that's when maybe you'll find it maybe somewhat lacking. But then let me try to pin it out, and then we'll see how it gets. That's 80. That's 100. That's 120. Now it's a pretty okay for day-to-day living, unless you are a car enthusiast. Maybe you want a lot, because these are crossover. It should do maybe A to B movements without any problem, because you're looking at 150 brake horsepower. If you want something more powerful, of course, you know there are the engines are to pick. But for day-to-day travels, this car is perfectly okay. If you are two people in the car, there's no problem whatsoever with the power delivery of this car. Actually, this car has a sports mode down here. You can actually flick this car into sports mode, and then what normally happens, it tends to hold to higher RPMs, basically to give you a little bit of power. That is how I'll call it, to give you some overtaking grunt. Of course, it becomes more expensive, especially when it's in sports mode, because of that high RPMs, and then it's trying to make more power. There is always a liability that comes about when you are trying to, when you flick the car into sports mode. It's pretty simple. The moment you are trying to hold to high RPMs, because now the car is holding to 2,000, 3,000 RPMs, of course at that point the fuel economy, the fuel figures, the fuel consumption tends to somewhat rise, especially when you are in sports mode. But at least it makes the car more responsive. Another thing you may want to learn is that majority of the Mazda Cx5 2000cc petrol 2000cc variants, they are mostly base model. By base model I mean they don't pack many features. Mechanically, majority of these are 2000cc petrol engine petrol Cx5s, they are going to be two-wheel drive, basically front-wheel drive. Now I have a 2013 Toyota Mark X GRX 135, basically all-wheel drive, and I can tell you for free, that car, as long as you don't need ground clearance and maybe the road is just slippery, that car will handle better than this Mazda Cx5 two-wheel drive. So another downside of purchasing a petrol flavor, in most applications they are going to be found as a front-wheel drive variants. Of course, I'm not a big fan of front-wheel or two-wheel drive crossovers, because I feel like a crossover, one of the ingredients that makes me like a crossover is the all-wheel drive element. So if I was to shop for a crossover, there is no way I'm putting my coin on a two-wheel drive crossover. But basically it's very hard. The chances of getting a two-wheel drive, chances of getting a 2000cc petrol Cx5 with the all-wheel drive are actually on the lower side. So if you want all-wheel drive, you may be forced to step up to the 2.5 liter petrol. That is if you can't do the diesel flavor. Now that is enough of ranting about the downsides of these 2000cc Mazda Cx5. Now let's focus on the positive side. Now when I'm looking at the cost of maintaining this car versus the diesel variant, this car is something that you pick from the dealership, you drive straight away to a service station or a garage, you flush the oils, and then your life is easy until the next service interval. And that is what I could say, maybe it has a peace of mind compared to the diesel flavor. For our diesel flavor, immediately we purchased that car, I had to drive to a garage, change the cooler bypass, do a DPF delete and a few modifications here and there. But for this one, you just keep it stock and nothing is going to go wrong. And I bet that is a very solid reason for one to drop the diesel flavor and pick this one, especially those people who are not into enthusiastic driving. In terms of practicality, there is no difference between diesel and petrol, because in terms of the headroom is similar, the legroom is the same, and even the driving position is still similar. It's only that maybe for the diesel, you have a choice of, in most cases, you can actually get the fully loaded specs, which will give you electrical adjusted seats, something like a Bose sound system, something like a 19-inch wheels. But for this base model, Mostly you'll have these fabric seats with a manual adjustment. Of course, you are going to find them with the standard sound system, and then with the 17-inch wheels. Assuming you walk into a car dealership and maybe you want to learn the various differences between the petrol flavor and the diesel variant in terms of basic outlook. Now for the exterior, there may not be any difference between this car and our base model Cx5, because if you checked our review last week of the base model, our Cx5, it is basically similar, but it also didn't come with the fog lights. It just looked like this one, but we installed aftermarket fog lights. In terms of how the hood looks like inside here, the difference between diesel and petrol is that for a petrol, the computer is actually on the left side, and then for the diesel variant, the computer is on the right side. So that is the difference, some basic difference you're going to note immediately you open the hood of the petrol Mazda Cx5. Now let's get into the interior, and then I'll tell you the difference. In the interior, there are also differences between petrol and diesel variant. The first difference you're going to notice that the petrol flavor actually comes with this sports button down here. The rest of this, the arrangement of this center console is pretty similar to the diesel variant. Now, when you're coming to here to the odometer, now this is where you can actually see another difference. For the petrol variant, the revs actually go from 1 to 8,000 RPM. That is from 0 to 8. But if it was a diesel variant, the revs actually move from 0 to 6. So if you just walked into a car dealership, or maybe you are purchasing a car online, and then you ask someone if it's a diesel or a petrol and they don't want to tell you, just tell them to send you the picture of this dashboard here. If the revs move from 0 to 8, that is a petrol flavor. If it's 0 to 6, that is a diesel variant. Now, in terms of how the outlook of this car looks in the interior, this is a base model. Don't expect it to pack many features, but at least it's loaded. Mazda don't leave their cars bare bone. So you have a volume control button on the left side, cruise control down here, an infotainment screen here with a bunch of functionalities. In terms of the interior and accommodation, that is how the car looks like, and I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time there. So on the side profile, there is nothing that is going to distinguish the petrol Cx5 from the diesel. Mostly the base model comes with these 17-inch wheels, but others come with a 19-inch wheels. But there's no difference in the ground clearance between the 19-inch wheel and the 17-inch one. Basically because these ones come with a thicker 65 profile, while the other one comes with a 55. So if you have 17 and 19, the ground clearance is similar. There are no two ways about reliability for the petrol one. It's perfectly okay. Of course, last week I said that if you want a stress-free life, the petrol will always be the best pick. But if you can do a little modifications here and there, and maybe you want to enjoy power and some good spirited driving, there's no reason whatsoever why you should not place your coin on the diesel flavor. But for the petrol, simple to live with, no dramas whatsoever. So another thing maybe you may want to learn if you're going to purchase a Mazda Cx5 Petrol, let me give you a short breakdown of the cost of maintenance. Now, in terms of servicing, this car actually uses a 5W30 oil. Let me show you. If you're having a Mazda Cx5, last time I said that you have to use the right oil, and the manufacturer's recommended oil is a 5W30. So ensure that you're getting the right oil. So apart from swapping the oil after maybe 7,000 kilometers or 10,000, whichever you like, you will change the oil filter and the air filter, and maybe you check the brake pads. The brake pads for a Mazda Cx5 front and rear, they're going to cost around 12,000 shillings. Those are original brake pads, and they should last you quite some distance. Original Mazda plugs for these petrol Cx5, there are 4 plugs. They cost 19,500 shillings as at now, and they should give you a mileage of around 40 to 50,000 kilometers. There is a video I uploaded last year, which whereby I was complaining about 2017 Mazda Cx5, which was actually guzzling a lot of oil. So you can check it on the channel. It's going to give you a little bit of insights on what to do to improve your fuel consumption, for the petrol flavor. So The spark plugs, you normally replace them maybe once in a while, but during the normal servicing, you're going to change the oil of the car, which will cost you around 6,000, 5,000 thereabouts. You change the air filter, the oil filter, and there's nothing wrong that is going to happen with this car. So that is actually how simple it is, and it will live from that service interval to the next one without us skipping a bit or without actually becoming dramatic. Even if you cover 200 meters per day, nothing wrong is going to happen for this car. But if you are a long distance travel, this is not the right car for you. Get the turbo diesel. It's more fun than this one, and you get better fuel economy. But of course, there is a catch. There are some maintenance that you should do. If you want to learn how to live with a Mazda Cx5 turbo diesel, there is a video on the channel. Check it out and let me know your thoughts about that. Alright, I think that's all you need to know about the maintenance of this car. Now, maybe if you want to replace the wheels, these are Bridgestone original wheels, but if you use other brands, you can actually get these 17-inch wheels. Actually, they normally cost around 9,500 a piece. So if you maybe want to change the whole set of 4, they're going to cost you around 30,000 shillings. Of course, for that one, it's going to depend on the brand, because there are brands of which these are one wheel. This one wheel 17-inch cost around 30,000 shillings. So basically, that one is going to depend on your pocket. Mostly people will be asking me for advice whether they are going to pick a petrol Cx5 or a diesel. Mostly, if you don't tell me your requirements, I normally tell them to pick the petrol flavor, because I normally assume that the average buyer or the common person is more interested in reliability more than anything else. But someone who's coming maybe from something like a Toyota Mark X 2.5 liter, something like maybe a Nissan Fuga, I normally advise them to test drive both cars, that is the diesel and the petrol, and then see whether they can live with a petrol, especially a 2000cc, because there are a lot of compromise. There is a compromise you're going to make if you're coming from a car with a huge displacement or a turbocharged car and going for this petrol variant. So the choice between a petrol and a diesel will actually depend on your priorities. Of course, if it is me, I'll not purchase a petrol, because it's not my cup of tea, because I normally want something that has a little bit of grunt and something that feels fun to drive, especially when I want to do that overtaking. Because for the petrol flavor, you need to make your calculations pretty well, because it's easy not completing an overtaking move if you did not plan effectively. But for the diesel one, if you do your calculations pretty well, I'll say that overtaking in a more powerful car is easier than in a slower car. But for day-to-day runs, this one is actually perfect. With 2.8 million shillings, there are not many crossovers, because nowadays cars have become very expensive. Actually, the only cars that we're going to get at 2.8 million shillings, and it's the same class with the Cx5, will be something like the Nissan X-Trail, because the Mitsubishi Outlander and the likes of Forester, CR-V, Tiguan, all those cars have crossed the 3 million mark. So is the Mazda Cx5 a petrol value for money? Of course, this car is value for money, because it's a reliable car. It won't trouble you. It won't bring actually many problems. It's as reliable as any other car outside there that is reliable. It drives so well. I like its handling and its performance on the road. In terms of handling, of course, not power delivery. And then it's stylish. When I'm looking at the cabin styling of this car versus the rivals, while these are base model, at least it tags along a few features here and there, including a high stopper, tire pressure monitoring system. We have a traction control, rear vehicle monitoring on this side mirror. So it's a car I highly recommend to someone who wants a crossover that actually is reliable. Now, on the other side, if you want something that is a little bit powerful, of course, and maybe you want something that something you may not do any modifications on it, I'll say that it's prudent looking at the 2.5 liter all-wheel drive. Of course, it's going to become more expensive in terms of the price tag and even in terms of fuel consumption, but at least it pays for its sins in terms of power delivery. And if you do your car shopping well, there is a high probability that you're going to get it with the all-wheel drive, something that is quite rare in the 2000cc petrol variant. If I have 2.8 million and I want a reliable crossover, definitely the Mazda Cx5 is going to make its way into the list, because when I'm looking at there are small cars like a Honda Vezel which are going for now 2.6 million, 2.5 million shillings. You can tweak your budget a little bit and get into a Mazda Cx5 Petrol, which is a more practical car, even more powerful than the Honda Vezel. So my overall analysis is that the Mazda Cx5 Petrol is a reliable car, good for day-to-day running, but it lacks a little bit of grunt, of course, which you can solve by getting the more powerful variants. If you want to purchase a car, whether it's this Mazda Cx5 or the competitors, something like the Subaru Forester, the Mitsubishi Outlander, the Honda CR-V, the Toyota RAV4, the Nissan X-Trail, Suzuki Vitara, the likes of Volkswagen Tiguan, you can actually shoot as a message or write as you can shoot as a message on WhatsApp or ring us, and then you'll give us the specifications of the car you want, and then we are going to scout a car for you, inspect it, and basically make your car ownership journey easy. That is the goal of 0 to 60 motoring. If there is something you did not understand or which was not quite clear with this 2016 Petrol Cx5 review, you can actually call us, or you can watch the 2017 Petrol Cx5 review. Maybe it was answered there. But still, if you miss out on some clarification, you can always reach us out, and then we are going to make your car ownership journey easy. That is the goal of 0 to 60 motoring. I think that's all you need to know about this 2016 Mazda Cx5 Petrol. I'll see you on the next one on 0 to 60 motoring. Bye for now.